It's been a while since we've had one of these, but yeah, our podcast, Sunday Brunch with Megan and Chris, came back this week, so that means it's time for another edition of The Leftovers. In case this is the first time you're listening to it, I'll fill you in really quick. The Leftovers is... Oh, horns honking outside. The Leftovers is obviously very casual, but it's kind of to get everyone's questions answered that might not have been answered in the normal podcast. Basically, every week I ask people on Twitter to send me their questions regarding a certain topic. Then they send me questions, which if you are listening, there's a good chance you sent me a question. And unfortunately, I'm only able to answer a few of those during the actual podcast, but I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to get their questions answered. So that's why I make this Leftovers, so that you can have yours answered too. This week, I answered questions about habits, which if you listen to the podcast, I answered the questions and I kind of gave my own insight as to how I think you can make sure that you stick to your habits or that you can break your habits or things like that. So if you haven't yet listened to the podcast, I highly encourage you to head over to secretstageproductions.com and check that out. You can listen to it right there on the website, or you can go to Stitcher, Google Play Music, iTunes, or YouTube to make sure that you hear that. It's a lot of fun. We really enjoyed this week's episode. So I encourage you to go and then come back and talk to us about it. Anyway, like I said, on that podcast, I talked about habits, but I had a few questions left over. So let's jump into those. All right. Which ones? Okay. First question. What habit do you have that you never thought you would? When I was growing up, I didn't grow up in a household that drank coffee, and so I think that it kind of surprised me that now as an adult, I drink coffee constantly. The caffeine doesn't affect me too terribly much if I drink it at night, so it's okay. I still kind of drink it at night sometimes. I also drink decaf at night, just to make sure. But I really do actually really enjoy the taste of coffee, and so I tend to... The first thing I do when I wake up is I'll make a pot of coffee and then I'll have that. And then usually I finish my first pot sometime before lunch. And then once I start getting a little bit more tired, around 2 or 3-ish usually, I'll make another pot and drink that before dinner. And so I think if you want to count that as a habit, then I think that might be the one I'm most surprised by, just because it wasn't something I was around that much growing up. What's one habit you have that you never intend to break? That's a really tough one. I would say that I'm very much in the habit of handwriting things out. Like, I really like digital note-taking, and I do a lot of digital note-taking, but I only tend to do digital notes if I think I'm going to be sharing them with someone, like emailing them, or I will need to copy and paste from them later, or if it's just too much for me to write out comfortably. But one thing I really like doing is every day, habits, I tend to handwrite out lists of notes for the day, my checklist of things to get done that day, different things. I just really like handwriting things. I also, fun fact, I still write in cursive, so that's different, I guess. What habit will make you stray from your New Year's resolutions? I think that if you are in the habit of, for lack of a better term, and I hate that we have this negative connotation with being lazy, because I definitely have days where I will go out of my way to be lazy, but I think if you're going to be lazy about it, and if you're like, well, I'm going to try to do it, but I'm not going to take it seriously, then if you're in the habit of being lazy about things and not really making sure that you stick to what you say you're going to do, I think you might struggle to stick to the goals that you've set for yourself, whether it's a New Year's resolution or not. That doesn't really matter. Any goal that you set for yourself, if you're not really adamant about reaching it, then it's going to be tough. You kind of have to be hard on yourself, even when you don't really want to. What color habit do you like to wear? I prefer a dark blue or a dark sandy brown, which is Jedi-like. I'm going to go with you on the Jedi. Like, I think that earth tones tend to look good on me. Maybe black. Black is slimming. So, yeah, let's go with black. Name the habits done by someone that you hate most. Mine's that sheeshing to take out things stuck between your teeth after a meal. That is a valid point that I completely agree with. Let me see. What habits do I not like? This is funny because Chris and I, in our podcast, we joke about the reason why we did a podcast that centers around we eat during our podcast. And so you have to hear us chewing sometimes, which is it's disgusting, but we know it's disgusting and we kind of do it because we think it's funny. We kind of have to throw our manners aside in order to keep talking while we eat. And that's kind of the point. And we went into it knowing it. But I really, really hate the sound of people eating and sound of people chewing. People eating with their mouth open, chewing with their mouth open. But outside of eating, what habits do I not like that other people have? I like to think that I'm pretty tolerant. If people talk down to people or are rude to people, I tend to not really like that. But people who are talk unnecessarily loud, that's pretty annoying. But yeah, I think I'm pretty tolerant of people, or I try to be. We'll go with that. If you could switch one of your bad habits for another equally bad habit, what would you give up and pick up? I've been working really hard on trying to quit biting my nails. So if I could give that up, what bad habit would I want to pick up? Maybe eating too much chocolate. If eating too much chocolate can be my bad habit, I think I'd be okay with it, because then at least it's still pretty tasty. Last question. Is Tipsy Chat habit forming? Asking for a friend. Yes, Tipsy Chat is habit forming. I am not sorry for it. But if you've never joined us, or if you have, Tipsy Chat is every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. It is a blast. It has some of the most amazing people on the entire internet. I can't even begin to tell you how much I look forward to it. And to answer this question about is it habit forming, yes, when I don't have Tipsy Chat, it's a weird week for me. So it is unapologetically habit forming, and we hope to see you there. Anyway, that is all for this edition of The Leftovers. If you haven't yet listened to this week's episode of Sunday Brunch with Megan and Chris, I highly encourage you to head over right now to secretstageproductions.com and give it a listen, and then head on back over to Twitter and talk to us. Let us know what you think. I can be found on Twitter at tipsy_writer, and you can get in contact with Chris either at casting42 or his personal Twitter, which is at Mr. CMH. Either way, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear if you have anything you want to hear us talk about, because we don't plan our episodes. We just hang out and have a good time and hope that you enjoy it. So that's all for this week. I will see you next week, and until next time, I hope you have a great